It's funny to have you on my podcast when you're a much more famous podcaster than I am.
Efrat Fenigson, the host of You're the Voice,
is an independent journalist and Bitcoin advocate exploring the future of money, freedom, and the systems reshaping our world.
I heard Bitcoin from 2010, but I was ignoring it until COVID came. I felt the state control over me. When that started happening, the money thing came back, because if they're coming for my bodily autonomy, next thing they're going to tell me what to do with my private property, my money. The government is out of control. So I asked people to teach me about Bitcoin. No one could answer my questions.
Walk us through how you get from the government's just trying to make money more efficient to it turns into authoritarianism.
They're saying this is for your convenience because now you can have all your information in one place. But guess what? All these breaches of information of citizens being sold out there in the market. It's really violation of our privacy, violation of our human rights in those CBDCs instruments.
You spent some time around the Samurai case where privacy is becoming a larger concern. People who are trying to innovate have been quite oppressed. Maybe walk through your perspective on privacy and some of the policy actions that have happened. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. I'm here with my friend Efrat, and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's funny to have you on my podcast when you're a much more famous podcaster than I am.
No, it's not funny. It's great. I love podcasts.
Well, you're great at it, but the reason why I wanted to have you on the conversation was you and I were sitting in the US, but I saw a talk that you gave in El Salvador that I thought was really fascinating about policy making around stablecoins, CBDCs, and freedom money and Bitcoin, and where all of that mattered from the policy side. And so I want to get there, but before we get there, you've had a really interesting, illustrious background in the business world, which I spend my time in.
Yep.
Before you became this orange dress Bitcoiner that's like driving all this freedom change around the world. So maybe just walk us through how you got here.
Sure. So I started as a software developer for a few years. Yes.
I didn't know. I knew the marketing executive.
There you go. My degree was computer science.
Okay.
And I was a developer for 3 years after graduating. I worked in video games companies.
Okay.
That's where I fell in love with tech.
Yeah.
And it was back in the beginning of the 2000s.
Yeah.
I did know that my passion, though, is not in creating the technology, but in having a conversation about it or creating the stories around it.
Yeah.
So I kind of try to find my way into business and marketing. And that's what I've done during the years. And I landed...
Wait, I have to pause you. Tell me about your video game thing. Like, this may get cut and make it broken.
Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo games.
Did you really?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I wrote,
as a closet video game, there's two things I do when I'm not in business or Bitcoin. It's surfing and games. So this is like great.
So yeah, I did for Xbox. It was a game, motorcycles game. I wrote the audio for it. It's like the music and the sound.
For a motorcycle game?
Motorcycles, and it was called MX versus ATV.
I played this game.
No way.
I played this game. You know what? This game is actually I've not only played this game, I've played this game in VR.
But that was like beginning of 2000. So it must be like an old version of it. It's like 2003, 4, 5. Anyway, that was one of the games. SpongeBob SquarePants was another one. But there are
all the big hits.
It's real.
All the big hits.
It's real. It's real. I've done that. I really did. And that's where I learned code, and I wrote mostly in C++. And I think it gave me a lot of the deep understanding of tech and how to think like a computer, you know, how do you operate these things? It was really valuable, but it's not where my passion was.
Yeah.
So I moved on to the other side and landed in marketing. Once I started doing marketing, it was like, that's what I was looking for. Yeah. That's the piece of the puzzle. I love psychology. I love influencing people's behavior. I love the intersection of tech with that. How can we use that to create some positive change in the world? Yeah. So I worked for different companies throughout the years. All in all, I spent about 20 years of my life in the corporate tech world, mostly in global companies and in startups. Yep. I did a lot of startup marketing, and I also founded with two partners a community which became a business for CMOs like myself. I was a chief marketing officer for many years. 150 CMOs, global CMOs that operate, at the time, was operated out of Israel to the whole world. Well, it's still running. I just left that after 7 years, and I've done that plus corporate CMO work for many, many years. I loved what I did. But at one point I was like, hang on, like, this is hard work.
Yeah.
Everyone in corporate tech knows.
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel like you're kind of selling your soul.
It's a big grind.
Especially in startups.
That's right. Yeah.
When you're going with the startup from a very early age to the later stages, you're like all in with the team, you know? And I've been part of some of those journeys while, by the way, I was also a single mom. So I had a young child that I was raising on my own with the help of my my parents, and it was a struggle. It was hard work.
2 startups.
Yes.
The business startup
100%.
and the family startup.
And that business that I told you about on the side. So I was super busy. I was like giving it my all. And something didn't make sense from the monetary side. Like I was making, you know, relatively speaking, a lot of money when you're looking at the salaries of a whole country. I'm like at the top, you know, up there. But still, I'm like paying so much taxes, working so hard to try and save money for myself and my son, and kind of chasing like that hamster wheel chase. I felt that I'm in that, and I did not know how to break out of it. So I started, like everyone, looking at investments. How do you invest your money to try and make more money? So I bought an apartment to have like a real estate that I can cash in some fixed income every month. You know what everyone's doing. And again, it was okay. It gives you a bit of pocket money, but the kind of headache, that's like job number 3. You have to be a landlord now. You have to take care of stuff.
People are calling you with the plumbing breaking while you're running a tech company.
Yes, and tenants and like headaches. And again, I wasn't built for that. So these things started accumulating as like question marks. I need to figure how I opt out of that stuff. Like there must be a better way. So for many years, as I was working in tech, I was also observing the ICO era and a lot of crypto stuff. I was never part of it, but I kind of heard about it. And I kind of felt like I heard Bitcoin from 2010, but I was ignoring it like everyone. And I was like, yeah, that's another fad in the tech industry. It's going to go away. I'm sure of it. And it kept on resurfacing every few years for me. I'm like, what is this thing? Why is everyone talking about it? I ignored 2017. I heard about it again. I thought it's another crypto. So I ignored, because I am super suspicious about like getting rich fast kind of schemes. Well, and I thought it was one of those.
I mean, in the ICO,
there was a lot of it.
Crypto era, it was just filled with.
Yeah.
So.
And I have alarm bells when it comes to, I don't know why. It's just inbuilt in me that it's like, I don't believe that there are free lunches. So I don't think that you can really get rich fast unless you were born to the right family or whatever. There are some cases, but I felt like I needed to prove my worth in society in order to, you know, be productive and make the money. Anyway, I kept ignoring until 2020 COVID came, and I kind of felt the state control over me in a very significant way.
Yeah.
I was deprived of my freedom to make my own decisions for myself and my son. I felt a lot of social pressure. I was like ostracized for not doing the right thing by people, of participating in the, you know, medical stuff that they were putting together, all the mandates and all that stuff. I was like against this, like, leave me be. I'm a healthy person. I don't need all that stuff. I don't want to do it. And I'm an educated person and I know how to do my research. I have done enough research to know that this is too early, too fast. I don't want to do this. Yeah. And I bear the consequences. I paid prices. And when that started happening, the money thing came back, because I was like, okay, if they are coming for my bodily autonomy and telling me what to do in that respect in my life, health-wise, next thing they're going to tell me what to do with my private property, with my money. They're going to come for that too, because it feels like the government or the state is out of control. And so I have to learn about money. I have to get educated. So I asked everywhere around me, who can help me learn about money, about sound money? I knew that gold is something that is worthwhile studying about. So I started reading, and I asked people to teach me about Bitcoin. no one could answer my questions. It was so frustrating. And I'm surrounded by the smartest tech people.
Yeah.
It's like, can you please tell me what this Bitcoin thing is? I'm curious. I want to know.
Yeah.
Is this something different than the crypto stuff?
Right.
Like, can I actually hedge my freedom in that? Can I put my wealth there and it won't go lost? And, the government will not take it from me. All that stuff. Until I found the right guy to answer my questions. He was the #1 Bitcoiner in Israel. And he sat down with me. He got me the Bitcoin Standard, the book, and I was on my journey.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of my answers. And the first question I asked him was, are you sure they cannot take it away from, like, the government cannot come between me and my Bitcoin? He's like, nope. If you do it right, like if you take self-custody and it's not with a third party, then yes, you can have your sovereignty over your private property. And I'm like, okay, let's start the journey. And I started purchasing Bitcoin slowly, gradually, until finally I sold my apartment, my investment property, and I put that money into Bitcoin. And I was on a trajectory ever since, because since I'm a very techie person.
Yes.
I'm not a developer and I don't want to be, but I understand the architecture. I understand the protocol. I understand the different layers. I understand why it is so hard to hijack that thing.
Yeah.
And why we are actually building the very first decentralized network, very similarly to the internet itself, just for money. And it's brilliant. It's genius. For me, it was a light bulb moment. And I went all in since I got it. Yeah, it's incredible. And so I came for hedging. I stayed for freedom, because once I moved my wealth into Bitcoin, I was like, my God, this gives me so much freedom to travel, to move, to take what's mine with me, to not ask for permission anymore, minimize my interfaces with banking, with tech companies, with government to the minimum necessary. Right. Obviously, I'll still pay my taxes and do everything that I need to do, declare what I need to declare, but I'm the boss now. And so I started building my life in a different way. Also, I come from Israel, so wars and conflicts and all that stuff is happening. And I speak out about what I see and about what I think people need to know, that the media is often hiding. And that may not be popular at all times. And so I need my sovereignty. I need to not be dependent on, other interests that will tell me if they'll support me or not support me, to do things with me or not. I need to be independent in speaking out and creating my, journalism, content, media, all that stuff. So I think that sovereignty is important for me.
The journey you're describing is I think people who grew up in largely first world mature markets, they think about authoritarianism or access like it's someone else's problem.
Yes.
That makes sense in the global South. It makes sense in Africa or with some dictator in Cuba or Venezuela. And a lot of my experience has been for people who grew up in the mature markets. It's not until Canada where you might have somebody in the supply chain and truck drivers that experience some kind of oppression, in their case, monetary oppression, that was surprising. Or where, HQ is for me in Silicon Valley, even in the middle of the heart of tech, I think, Bitcoin is largely thought of as something that's somewhat crypto adjacent and it's all kind of the same. And even most tech people, like you're describing in Israel, kind of just view it as an interesting tech. And oftentimes, as many years as I was in it, you didn't hear business tech people in Silicon Valley start asking me about the freedom angle until Silicon Valley Bank fell. And then they started going, okay, maybe the system I think is really stable is less
a little
stable.
Bit more fragile than I
And then the more time we spend with people in media or other areas where there are real concerns, you start realizing, there needs to be some kind of alternative. Because monetary policy, if has some kind of ability for authoritarian control, whether you're in a global South or in a mature market, can change quite rapidly. You've experienced that yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And Terrence Michaels always says, people speak about Bitcoin as an alternative, but I beg to differ. that this is the improvement, not the alternative. Like we start by seeing it as an alternative because we look at life from the lens of fiat monetary system. This is how things are rolling.
Yeah.
But it's just like any evolutionary step in history where you get superior technology coming in to replace the old, like a car replacing a carriage, right?
Yeah.
And he also says, by the way, that this is why a car is called a car, because it's carriage, car is just like the shorter thing. It's just an improvement.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin is not coming to be an alternative to fiat. It's coming to improve it and replace it. Just people don't know it yet. We are so early.
We are early, and I think, this is such a strong social change, right? Like the monetary element is so critical to society.
Yeah.
And what you find...
It is the oxygen.
It is, it's
in my opinion.
And it is the energy that drives how commerce and social interactions work.
Yeah.
And my experience is, if you look at this historically, democracy was a new thing compared to monarchies and authoritarian rule. And it was just an experiment with one country until it wasn't.
Yes.
And similarly here, you can call it better, you can call it an alternative, but it's in the arc right now of something that is completely new for society to grapple with. And so as we grapple with it, I think there are different forms that are not always obvious to people, that aren't kind of in the inside circle. CBDCs, stablecoin, Bitcoin, you've spent a lot of time looking at how different parts of the spectrum where money can be digital, but it might not all be the same.
That's right.
When we're talking about policy and what does it mean for society. So
100%.
How do you walk kind of through that?
Right. So I was curious with CBDCs because I was already heavily into Bitcoin, and then I start seeing that all these central banks around the world are experimenting with this digital money. I'm like, curious, let's see what kind of digital money they're working on. And lo and behold, they're working on the improvement to fiat, which is basically same rules as fiat in terms of issuance, in terms of who's responsible, but they're adding on top of everything we already know, a very strict enforcement mechanism to that system. The fact that you can have a geolocation on the money, like where are you using it and what kind of radius that we allow you to use it, expiry date, just like a coupon or a voucher, digital wallets on and off, we will see if you're complying with the kind of criteria we've put in place, and we'll decide what the quotas are. So programmable money in the sense that the state or the government or the central bank have the power to determine what you'll do with the money, where and when and how much, what kind of quotas, etc. And so that is a very authoritarian tool in the hands of countries and central banks that are supposed to be Western, democratic, modern, right? So that's a big alarm bell for me. And so I started going deeper into that, looking for the common denominators between the different central banks around the world, what they're working on, how they're doing it. Again, we're lo and behold looking at global organizations that are kind of dictating those policies, like the Bank of International Settlements, the IMF, that are really pushing forward. Obviously, ECB, which is one of the key entities pushing forward with the first Western, I would say, rollout of a CBDC in the EU zone for many countries. After you already have about a dozen countries that have started and implemented CBDCs in their countries, but no one in the West wants to kind of look at them and say we are mimicking them, which is China, Russia, Nigeria, and a few other smaller countries that, no proud Western country will look at them and say, oh yeah, we're doing what Nigeria is doing. Like, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be palatable for the citizens. It wouldn't make sense for the bankers themselves. Like people want to say, oh, we'll do what the EU is doing. That sounds a lot more responsible.
So what you're saying, because again, I think central bank digital currency, digital money, for an outsider sounds Bitcoin-like.
Yes.
But you're actually saying, just to be clear, what folks in Europe and other relatively mature markets are trying to do actually look much more like a Chinese version and a Russian version and a Nigerian version.
It is that.
Okay.
And that's the scary thing about it, that people think, oh, okay, if I live in Israel, which is a relatively Western country, and I have a shekel today, and then I'm going to have a digital shekel, I'm basically just going to have a more convenient way to pay, faster, immediate, digital, on my phone. It all sounds really great, but really what you're having is the beginning of a social credit score system like you have in China, like you have in Russia. Ukraine has also have developed something similar. So Brazil now has it.
Slightly conspiratorial.
Okay, let's break it down to make it less conspiratorial. Let's talk about Ireland.
Walk through how you get from let's assume for a minute they're trying to just go, we're just making this
I can give you many examples.
So walk us through how you get from the government's just trying to make money more efficient.
Yeah.
To it turns into a social score and authoritarianism. Right. How do we get there?
It sounds like so good on the face of it, but all of my work is based on real life pilot programs that those central banks have rolled out in their countries. Thailand, for example, had a pilot for 6 months with 10,000 people where they gave them, I think it was 10,000 baht, which is $250. Not a big money for us, but for them it was free. And they told them you can use that money in a 4 kilometers radius only for certain things, and it will expire within 6 months. And they then wanted to take that same pilot program after 6 months and roll it out to millions of people in Thailand. Yeah. Because of the pushback, they went back from it. But basically they said, if you have a criminal record, if you have certain things in your, like you don't have a tax entry in place, you will not be allowed to use this for certain things. This is the beginning of a credit score system. Let's go to Ireland. Ireland is now rolling out the first, I think it's the second, but it's the first big official digital ID wallet. So it's a combination of the digital ID and a wallet, a digital wallet, rolled out these days in Ireland, which is part of the EU.
Which is a very Bitcoin or a very business friendly environment.
Oh yeah, you have a lot of tech companies there.
Would think, Ireland is a great place to offshore.
That's right.
It's a very great place to enter Europe.
Tax-wise, it's okay.
So how does the tax friendly, business friendly Ireland turn into?
Well, so Ireland is implementing that digital ID and digital wallet, which it says right now it's voluntary, but it will become a mandate very soon where people will have to use that wallet in order to identify themselves when they get access to the internet, to websites. Okay, they will have to use the digital ID to access. Now, their justification is it's to protect the children because we're doing age verification here. We just want to make sure that you're a responsible adult, not going to forbidden websites. And that's why we have that digital ID in place. But guess what? It's connected with your digital wallet as well. So we can control your money. So if we didn't verify your age and you cannot do certain things, we can also switch off the ability to let you use your wallet for certain things.
And no government's ever going to look at any of that history.
Why would they, right? Never. So, I mean, and there are so many more examples. It starts with access to information next to the internet. It mentions things like your criminal record. It mentions things like your ability to participate in things like vaccines, right? If you didn't take a vaccine, you won't be able to go to certain places. We saw that in COVID, like how conspiratorial you need to be to just see that
was
happened,
the story in Canada, right? They used the
it.
The Banking Act.
Right. And they're implementing it all now in a more centralized, coherent way. And they're saying this is for your convenience because now you can have, guess what? All your information in one place. The government, the nanny state, will be the one holding it for you. You can trust us, bro. We're good for it. We'll hold it safely. But guess what? You have all these hackers and breaches of all these databases of governments with a lot of public information of citizens being sold out there in the market because they're being hacked every Monday and Thursday. Because guess what? The network, the security on that network is not the best.
So you have a government.
There are so many things wrong with it. I'm just giving you a taste of it, but it's really, I'm sorry that I'm just really passionate about this because it's really a violation of our privacy.
Yeah.
It's a violation of our human right to decide where we move to, what we do with our money, with our private property. It's like there's a long list of human rights violations in those CBDCs instruments.
Yeah, I mean, literally, private property is the foundation of democratic principles, and so, and monetary principles of private property are maybe the most important of them. I would say maybe break down Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, the alternative conversation from the other side is, well, CBDC is efficient. If you're not doing anything wrong,
It's efficient,
it's fine.
Well,
And if you're not doing anything wrong, it's fine. And by the way, something from the government is trusted, and this other thing is not trusted.
That's how they sell it.
That's the positioning.
Yeah.
So if you're a business leader or an investor and you're trying to like unravel all of this stuff, and Bitcoin sounds just like this thing that maybe is, revolutionary global South money. Like, how does it actually enter society then, as improved monetary policy?
Here's an anecdote before I get there. The IMF held an event a few months ago, and the head of the IMF, she said, you can use CBDCs, you can use stablecoins, you can use different types of digital money that the central bank is backing.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin, she said, is unbacked.
Yeah.
Unbacked.
Yeah.
Like that is the only monetary asset that is not backed. Not backed by what?
Yeah.
By your word?
Yeah.
By the state authority? It's backed by energy.
Yeah.
Do you even get how it works? So I think they do.
Money printer is the problem.
Correct. I think they do get how it works, but they're afraid of the fact that it is permissionless.
Yes.
They're afraid of the fact that they have little to zero control over it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's a public ledger that is completely transparent and can be another checks and balances mechanism in a democracy, right? This is something they do not want, because when they hold the mandate on fixing the interest rate, on issuing the money and deciding how much inflation there will be, how much of the fiat monetary units they're going to put into the market, they're the bosses.
Yeah.
Bitcoin comes and takes away some of that power away from them. So for them, it's called unbacked. But Bitcoin is essentially the only money that exists that has a fixed issuance, a capped 21 million coins that would ever be able to be issued. We're now at the 20 million, more or less, right?
Yeah.
So we're kind of at the gold rush era of getting some, whether you get it through buying or through mining or through earning it, right? You have different ways of acquiring it right now for the next 110 years. But basically, once you acquire Bitcoin, no matter how you got it, and you take self-custody of it, you have taken the highest level of sovereignty over your private property.
Yeah.
And now you become the bank. You become the boss. You decide, when do I use it? How do I use it? No one will give you permission on quotas, on expiry dates, on geolocation. You are the sovereign and you decide what you do with it. It does put a lot more responsibility on you.
Yeah.
You need to become a lot more sovereign in the way you handle your life and your financials and your economics.
Yeah.
But I see it as a positive. I see it as something that actually gives the people back power that they have given away to governments and states. Too much power is with them. And so as a libertarian, I think, the government should be as small and minimal as possible and have as least intervention as possible to our lives. And so that's a positive because you take back control over something that you have given out. And I think that will create more good tension or balance between citizens or constituents and their public officials. They're supposed to represent you.
Yeah,
right?
reinforcing autonomy, right? In business, you want independent thinking, right? That's why, Silicon Valley and tech has been so successful, is it's independent, autonomous thinking. And so you want economic principles and political principles that match.
And you want to innovate with less friction.
Yeah, I mean, every business leader knows that unless you're like trying to build regulatory capture through monopolistic principles, which is not good business leadership. You want free markets, you want autonomy in system, you want less bureaucracy, and we know the outcomes are better that way. And you know, I think
I used to work in a commercial drones company, AI, robotics, and drones. We were waiting for the regulator to just give their blessing for every step we needed to take.
Right.
And for a startup, that was detrimental.
Yeah.
We had Silicon Valley investors, they were going crazy.
Yeah. It does slow you down. And so I think this sort of autonomous behavior, both in the business side and as an individual, and, you know, individuals that are high net worth really understand what property rights look like, what the ability to be able to move their capital around looks like. And I want to get to the privacy side in a minute. But before I do, you have a really nuanced take, I think, on the thing in the middle.
Yes.
So there's freedom money in
Good
Bitcoin.
definition of it.
And then there's CBDCs. So maybe we'll say good on this side, bad on that side. And then there's this other thing in the middle. And so let's talk about stablecoins for a minute.
Yeah, so it's kind of a spectrum as you're correctly describing it, because if retail CBDC is the most oppressive monetary instrument that there is, or at least has the potential to be, you then look at stablecoins, which provide you more freedom in terms of not asking for permission to use them. However, they can be censored or confiscated in case the government or any authority would come and knock on the door of any regulated stablecoin company. Right. Like we saw, for example, a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, Tether confiscating $300 million worth of stablecoins because the agencies have asked them to. Yeah. And again, I'm not going to the case whether it was correct or not. I'm just saying the capability is there. So if you are betting on stablecoins as your liberating, kind of force, it is not. Yeah. So you still need to hedge yourself, because stablecoins are great for certain things. We see them being used in the global south as, a very healthy mechanism to transfer your devastating fiat very quickly into a dollarized kind of instrument. However, you still need to understand that on the one hand, they can be confiscated. On the other hand, they also help the United States to continue kicking the can down the road by increasing the debt. The national debt, which is, what is it now? 39 trillion, 38 trillion. Huge amounts of debt. With stablecoins, they can essentially continue selling bonds to stablecoin companies and increasing that debt. And so we're not really solving the recession inflation problem of fiat. Whereas you go another step on that spectrum and you get to Bitcoin. Bitcoin helps balance some of that problem of the inflation recession dynamics by allowing you to stop printing excessively, and Bitcoin will give you that freedom that stablecoins cannot. And, Bitcoin permissionless completely, and no one could stop it once it's immutable. So once a transaction has been made, it cannot be rolled back. With stablecoins, it can still be confiscated. And so there is a good and a bad about stablecoins. It does provide some kind of more innovative approach, faster, global, gets us even closer to Bitcoin, because it also opens a rail for you to, once you have gotten your stablecoins, you can now move on to Bitcoin a lot more easily. So you can transfer your stablecoins or convert your stablecoin into a Bitcoin in a more convenient, fast way. So there are pros and cons to it. And I think it's not right to speak about stablecoins just as the CBDCs in disguise, because they do have some good things, but also don't speak about stablecoins as they're the same as Bitcoin. No, they're not. They do have, there are some nuances there. And I think Nick Anthony is a great guy to follow in that sense and read his articles about the differences. But I think the bottom line here is that you got to educate yourself about the new monetary instruments that are coming into play, because we're very quickly, acceleratingly quickly getting into an era in which your money is changing. Yeah. And if you're not keeping up with those changes, you're going to be just corralled into a CBDC world or a stablecoin world. And you may actually want to get into the Bitcoin world, but you don't have enough knowledge. So start learning about it now. And for techies, like for people who are in Silicon Valley, in tech, like this is a no-brainer. You just put your mind to it, read a book, listen to some podcasts. It's not brain science, you really can get it very quickly. For me, it was the biggest gift I've given myself. I hope other people will do the same.
Yeah, I find, and I appreciate that you hold this nuanced view because, it's CBDCs, this concept that digital money in general is like the first invention in human history for 5,000 years in monetary change. It's pretty wild. And so there is a lot of options.
Yeah.
And one option maybe increases authoritarianism.
Yes.
And so it's important to know that that is an option that leads us down a worse path because technology is neutral, but it can bend towards, nuclear can either create a bomb or it can create abundant energy.
Yeah.
And so let's avoid creating a bomb. In my view, stablecoins is almost this thing where it perpetuates the existing financial system. And in some cases, that financial system works for them. It digitizes fintech.
Exactly.
In the fintech industry, maybe there are reasons that stablecoins is now growing faster than Visa and MasterCard. And so maybe it creates a competitive pressure on it. But that's different than freedom money.
Absolutely.
And even within stablecoins, I think a topic that's less talked about is the predominant stablecoins that exist today exist on blockchains that are not open, freedom, money-driven blockchains.
Permissioned.
They're permissioned blockchains that are predominantly owned by a very small group of people.
Exactly.
That were oftentimes some form of very bad crypto behavior in the early days, but have now been covered up on top with stablecoins. And so one of my concerns about stablecoins is not that there's not an efficient version that could be a bridge to Bitcoin. But the current stablecoins that 99% of the market have are actually built on things that are not Bitcoin. They're built on permission, and they're built on things that look very much like Wall Street wrapped with crypto.
Absolutely.
And so
100%. I think also Ripple is a good example for that in terms of the freedom aspect, because Ripple has a white label product for central banks and governments to create a CBDC on top of their technology. So it's like they're selling you a crypto token and a stable coin that they have developed, but they also sell their platform white label to central banks to create CBDCs. So that shows you what kind of resemblance there is in terms of the tech behind it between the different products. And they're in bed with, with the central banks. How can you even think that XRP would be your freedom money? It's like by people who are doing that. So,
and I think
and the other thing we didn't say about Bitcoin is that there is no CEO, there is no company, there is no one issuer or an entity that represents the Bitcoin. It's ours, it's the people's. So that's the meaning, the significance of being a truly decentralized, permissionless protocol.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why I believe if a stablecoin should exist in the market, it needs to be Bitcoin backed, because it needs to be the only improvement you're going to make over Visa, MasterCard, and Swift should be an open protocol like the internet.
Yeah.
And if we can't get all the way to Bitcoin native standard, then whatever's dollarized needs to be on a open, non-owned, non-permissionless standard. And so I think, I'm a big believer that stablecoins could be the bridge into Bitcoin, but they need to be built in the right way. And so, because Bitcoin is driving towards more human flourishing. And I want to end maybe on the importance of human flourishing, where technology can be a good force or a bad force, and it's around privacy. You spent, some time around the Samurai case and other cases where, you'd want technology to give more independence and autonomy, but actually in the world we're growing up in, actually privacy is becoming a larger concern. You have, even in the US and other Western places, policy that, people who are trying to innovate and trying to create technology that I think is against authoritarianism have been quite oppressed. And so maybe walk through your perspective on privacy and some of the policy actions that have happened.
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying that I find it wild that we live in an era that privacy had become like a forbidden concept, like a radical concept. Like, we're not talking about as you alluded to before, conspiracy theories. We're talking about privacy. It's like the curtains we have in our homes. It's like going to the toilet and closing the door. The kind of privacy that Samurai Wallet was building, had built actually, was the exact level of privacy that you have today in your commercial banking system, in your bank account. Right? I cannot go into Jeremy's bank account and see what you've got there and how much and what kind of transactions you did, right? This is private for you. You can see it, the bank can see it, but I cannot see it. That's what Samurai Wallet built. And for that, he was sent to prison. Like, putting a private wrapper on top of Bitcoin transactions so that no one can look into my wallet and see the kind of transactions I did. It sounds completely normal, right? He was sent to prison for that. Him and his co-founder that is going to prison soon. And so to me, it drives me crazy because if they're doing it to them and they're doing it to Tornado Cash and they're doing it to other freedom tools that are being built these days, they are sending a very clear message. And the message is, if you are building privacy tools on top of permissionless open public ledgers and systems, we're going to get you. And you're not allowed to do this. Why? Because we're not the boss. It leads back to what we said before. We're not the ones to control this. And if we don't have control, then you can do it too. But that doesn't work in a free world that we want to have. If we want to preserve a level of freedom, we need that privacy. It's essential. And so you're seeing Lauren Rodriguez, Keane's wife, fighting behind the scenes with some great people who are helping out. And this is my public call to people to be aware of this case. Go watch my interviews with them, but also get educated about how the regulators are behaving towards developers of open source privacy technologies. It makes zero sense. And by the way, Samurai Wallet was in compliance with FinCEN regulation. That is the regulator that they needed to get the okay from. They were working with solicitors to ensure that they are within the boundaries of the regulation, and they were. And still they got prosecuted by the Biden administration judicial system. So I think that this is a big injustice. It needs to be, Keane needs to be pardoned. They both need to be pardoned. And I think the current administration needs to show, and this is my private opinion, the United States has always been the beacon of freedom of the world. It always showed the way, paved the way towards, you know, the land of the free, the home of the brave. You need to continue showing people that if people want to preserve their freedoms, they can do that in the United States. They shouldn't feel prosecuted and haunted and chased by the governments. They should have the freedom to do that. And I hope that we're going to see good outcomes, brighter days. Privacy is essentials, and not only in Bitcoin, not only in money, it's essential in anything. So privacy tools in general, and where big tech sometimes is taking us, with Google and big AI, big tech companies. I think it's concerning to say the least.
We definitely have there's a historical precedence of tech companies that are pushing privacy boundaries that I think eventually the US catches up to. So Bitcoin has a history rooted in PGP. And PGP themselves was actually really important privacy and security technology that the entire internet is built on. And at some point, the early team was quite oppressed. We have friends that now I think most of the Western world would agree that VPNs are really important for freedom technology.
That's right.
But for a while, VPNs were quite concerned. And now places like China are actually oppressing them. So I think
in the UK, there's talking about banning VPNs. The UK, for God's sake.
I think hopefully the US is going to push back. And I hope that's true in the monetary principle. So, but I appreciate all of the media work you've been doing to raise awareness to this issue. So this has been an awesome conversation. Efrat, I could spend 2 hours with you talking about this. Where can people find you, your information, a lot of your research? It's quite incredible.
So most of my research is on my blog, which is efrat.blog, and my podcast, You're the Voice. You can find it on any YouTube, Spotify, etc., all those channels. I'm on X on a daily basis. And the most important, I think, speaking of also freedom and privacy, Nostr. So I'm on Nostr. If you don't know what Nostr is, research it or listen to one of my podcast episodes. It's the best decentralized public network we have for exchanging information.
Yep.
So yeah, you can find me on any of those.